Hello everybody, it's Foo here, and I'm bringing you another overlooked buff video. Today we will be looking at the Pokemon that puts the bear in beard. That is right, we are looking at Beartic, the nice ice-type polar bear. And I think he's a really cool Pokemon, lots of reasons to like him, but we'll go into that in a minute. First off, if you do like this kind of content, please consider leaving a like on this video. It really helps me work out what kind of content you guys want to see and helps promote the channel. So I'd really appreciate it, but no problem if you don't want to. So Beartic, very cool. I really like the design. I think that he looks awesome. It's really simple, but he just looks like a kind of massive snowy mountain. And I think that's wicked. Massive paws, very scary. And that weird beardy icicle thing. I think it's just fantastic. I think he looks really powerful, and he is pretty powerful, but definitely overlooked. So as with always with these videos, what we'll be considering is how much better this guy is now compared to back in generations 5 and 6. Generation 7, he's changed a little bit, so we'll be looking at what buffs he's got and how you might want to use him. But first, we'll have to consider what he was like before, back in the days of Generation 5 and 6. So first off, let's look at his stats. And he's got some pretty decent stats. He's got 95 HP, which is by all accounts pretty good. That's a lot of HP, as well as decent defenses to back it up. Base 80 isn't bad, so he can take some hits. He's also got a really nice base 110 attack stat that hits kind of hard, so that's good. Base 70 special attack stat won't really get a look in because it's so much lower than that attack stat. It's not awful, but it's not going to be used. And then you've got base 50 speed, which does let the rest of the stats down a little bit because it is pretty slow. At least you can take some hits with those defenses. But then you've got the ice typing to combine with that, which gives you a lot of weaknesses. And being slower than so many Pokemon with a lot of weaknesses isn't very good. So that's a bit of an issue. Then if we consider the abilities, it's got Snow Cloak, which gives it an evasion boost in Hail, which is kind of not great. It's not a reliable ability. Yes, you boost your evasion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to help you out at all. You might still be hit by all the attacks, so it's not a very reliable ability to use. And then you've got Swift Swim, which is really cool because this is a non-water type Pokemon that gets a speed boost in rain, doubles its speed, meaning that it's a lot faster. It'll outspeed most Pokemon as long as they don't have the Choice Scarf. Some of the faster Pokemon with the Choice Scarf can still outspeed it though, so you need to bear that in mind. What's nice about this ice type combination with the Swift Swim is that a lot of Swift Swim rain teams obviously have a lot of water type Pokemon that could struggle with grass types and maybe dragon types too. This guy, because of the ice typing, has really strong attacks to take them out. So he's an interesting choice for some rain teams. And I kind of like that. I like that a lot. So he can function as a rain sweeper there, and he's got access to Sword Stance as well, which boosts his high attack to really high levels, and you can potentially sweep. So that's probably what Beartic was most used for in Generation 5 and 6. Definitely in the lower tiers mainly, but that's probably where you would see him. So let's consider some of the buffs that came in Pokemon Sun and Moon and Generation 7. And the first one we're going to look at is Beartic got a stat boost, which is really nice. Its attack went from base 110 to base 130, which is massive. It already had a good attack stat. Now it's really strong. It's going to be breaking through a lot of things, and that's so important for weather sweepers because you need the maximum damage output possible. You need to use those few restricted rain turns to the maximum ability. So basically you need to get as many Okos as possible, and with base 130 attack, that is definitely possible, especially when you combine that with the access to Sword Stance. Or you could just whap a Choice Band on this guy, go Adamant, and try to take things out as is. Like, that's a lot of attack if you have a Choice Band and Adamant. This guy has got a really high attack stat. Icicle Crash is a really nice stab move to be able to spam. You've got Superpower there to catch some of the Steel types and Ice types that might try to resist your Ice Stab. Got some other coverage moves. Throat Chop was added this generation, which is a bit of a boost from Night Slash previously. It doesn't get knockoff, which is really frustrating though. And you've also got Play Rough there. You've got Aqua Jet as a priority move, which is kind of interesting. So some really cool physical moves. Doesn't have some of the really useful knockoff and Earthquake as some bigger missions, which is really annoying. And also Superpower over Close Combat. Close Combat would be better because then you're not dropping your attack stat. But still, Good coverage, really, really strong attack stat, and that's definitely a huge boost from previous generations, making this guy a little bit more relevant, which is nice, and a little bit of a better weather sweeper. Speaking of weather sweeping, we'll come to the second buff for Beartic, which is the addition of a new ability, Slush Rush. This ability was introduced in Generation 7, and what it does is the same as Swift Swim in rain, apart from Slush Rush boosts your speed in hail, which is really interesting. Hail was definitely previously probably the worst weather typing because there were no abilities that boost speed in hail, whereas in sun, rain and sand you had the relevant abilities. Now we've got Slush Rush, which is pretty cool and definitely interesting for hail teams. If you want to run a dedicated hail team, you potentially can with the Slush Rush sweepers now. The issue with hail is that it doesn't really give any other advantages. Like in rain, water type moves get a damage boost, which is really great. In sun, it means that grass types can have their solar beams and fire types get their damage boosts. Sand doesn't have any damage boost to moves, but you do have rock types receiving a special defense boost, but ice types really don't gain anything in hail. They don't get a damage boost, they don't get a defense boost or anything like that. The only thing is that blizzards are more accurate, but this guy is definitely a physical attacker, not a special attacker. So it's really good for giving you more options, giving hail more options, and this guy can function as a hail sweeper. But unfortunately, I don't think it adds too much. It's definitely a buff, definitely increases this guy's versatility, but I would really like hail to like boost ice type resistances or like boost their defenses. That would be really nice, and it doesn't happen. But anyway, this guy is now a hail sweeper, the only other one being Alolan Sandslash, so you can choose which one you want to use. The last buff we're going to consider is going to be Z moves. Yes, I'm going to talk about them this time because I think that they're very relevant for weather sweepers. So whether you're running a Swift Swim Beartic or a Slush Rush Beartic, you will have access to those extremely powerful offensive Z moves. And that's important. As I said before, you need to be nuking your opponent and using those weather turns to the max, getting Okos, so that you can then deal damage to the next Pokemon and the next Pokemon, and Z moves help so much here. The most common one you'll be using is Sub-Zero Slammer based off Icicle Crash because it's so powerful. It means that you don't have to worry about that slight drop in accuracy on Icicle Crash. You're not going to miss your Sub-Zero Slammer, and it just does so much damage, especially if you can get a Sword Dance up. That's going to pretty much Oko most things that don't resist. So yeah, really, really strong move there. The alternative one that you might want to consider is an all-out pummeling based off Superpower. This is nice because it's obviously a very strong all-out pummeling, and also you're not dropping your attack when you use Superpower because all-out pummeling doesn't have that secondary effect. So that's really nice. You can go for your fighting type move and then still have all your attack left to do tons of damage to everything else. Those are probably the most common ones. You could use some of its other coverage to base a Z move off. Play Rough or Throat Chop are some other options, or maybe even a Giga Impact if you want to go for that. In terms of status Z moves, there aren't really any to write home about. This guy can already boost its attack with Sword Stance. It can boost its speed in weather. It's worth noting that even with doubling its speed in weather, it can still be outsped by some Choice Scarf users. So maybe you want to use Z Hail or Z Rain Dance because that will obviously get your ability functioning, doubling your speed, and then give you a +1 speed on top of that with the Z move. However, that's using both your Z move and a move slot on Beartic to set that up. So I don't think it's worth it when you need as much coverage as possible as well as Sword Stance. I think it's worth just going with like the offensive Z moves. But they're really worth it, and really with that attack boost and the Z moves, this guy puts out a ton of damage. So in weather, he can really work. I think that there are obviously maybe some better weather abusers out there, things that might not need as much support as this guy might, but with that said, I think that he can function pretty well. Pair him up with an Aurora Veil Alolan Ninetales, you can get your Sword Dance off and do some real damage in the hail, or if you're struggling with grass types with the rain team, this guy can definitely help out there. I've mentioned a few shortcomings I think he has. I would really like it if he got either Waterfall or Liquidation, because then in Swift Swim you can get that boosted by the rain, as well as your Stab, Icicle Crash and Superpower. That would be fantastic coverage. No Knockoff, no Earthquake is annoying, and maybe having a little bit more bulk would be good for a Pokemon with pretty poor typing, because ice typing is just really a lot of weaknesses, which isn't great. Overall though, I love this Pokemon. I think he looks awesome. He hits really hard. If the opponent is unprepared or doesn't know what he does, you stand to do a lot of damage. So yeah, definitely try this guy out. But that's going to be all for today. Nothing too out there. The only out there suggestion I would have would maybe be a Specs Blizzard Slush Rush set. That's as far as I'm going to go with this one though. So I hope you guys enjoy that. As I said, if you let me know in the comment section what you think of Beartic, what you think of the buffs that it's received, and how you think it could be better, how you want to use it. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.